Thank you so much, Arif. I appreciate your speech. But we are very late now on the schedule, so if Sikong Pampatsering want to say some words to conclude this first session, this first roundtable.
Schools that we touched, because when you point that out to the Chinese point fingers at the United States and say, how did you treat your native people? Then they point fingers at the Canadians and say, how did you treat your First Nation people? Then they point fingers at Australia and say, how did you treat your Aboriginal people? So they know what the Americans did at that time, those days, what the Canadians did those days, what the Australians did those days was wrong. And they're doing the same thing to the Tibetans today. And when Janet opened her statement with respecting the native people here, just outside DC, in the same place where we are holding our conference, I know for a fact that in Australia, before you start any event, you invite one native Aborigine to pray for the success of the conference or gathering or whatsoever. So you have the Americans learned their mistakes. They are making up for it. They are trying to reconcile to the grievances that the native and the Aborigines and the First Nation people have. The Canadians are also doing the same. The Australians are also doing the same. But the Chinese are doing exactly the opposite. They know it's wrong, but they are doing it, and they are trying to justify that by telling telling others what you did earlier in your history. So that apart, and then I also wanted to point out that the reason why we had this conference in Washington, D.C. is also because the United States is the only country that has a law on Tibet. So the Congress has, the State Department and the White House, the administration has to report to the Congress on progresses, whether it's on negotiation or human rights situations inside Tibet. And that is what keeps it going. And coming back to this topic of democracy, I know there are many people who suffer like us. There are many communities who are outside their countries, struggling for freedom. But unlike others, we had a leader. I remember some of our Uyghur friends who used to tell us that we have the body but no head. You have head but no body. So they're of course, talking about His Holiness, the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And our Uyghur friends have also learned from us. They have elected leadership in the form of Dolkun Isa, and they also have now they call themselves the government in exile, Uyghur government in exile. So we will be, I even tell our Hong Konger friends that you are young, energetic, educated. There are many things that you can do, but as we Tibetans say, hope for the best. And prepare for the worst. Our generation, my parents' generation, also thought that we will be returning back to Tibet in 2-3 years' time. But we had to live in exile for the last 60 years, and we are facing the same opponent. Even Hong Kongers will have to learn to prepare for the worst. If there are any ways that we can help them, we'll be very happy to do that. I attended World Uyghur Congress many years back, and I also told them the same. If there is anything that we can teach you through our experience with the long-term vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we'll be happy to do that. But then certain circumstances doesn't allow all of us to meet in the place where we are located. But our cooperation continues to grow, and tomorrow we will witness what concrete proposals come out of the discussion on facing common challenges. Then with governments, we all know when we talk about advocacy, when we talk about creating law on Tibet, it's not easy. You are in different situations. There are different political systems. You have different internal domestic issues that you need to take care of. We know also I always keep telling the Tibetans that for every nation, of course, we have to try to reach out to the international community as much as possible. But for every nation, their interest comes first. They won't set aside their national interests for the cause of Tibet. That is also a reality. But we have had very good support from the US government, and this morning also we talked about some of our, I think Richard Gere also raised about the level of the special coordinator's post. We had discussions as to whether this should be an assistant secretary's post or undersecretary's post. But with the assistant secretary post, even if that person is designated only for special these Tibet issues, if China does not recognize that person or the position, there are not many avenues for that person to raise the concerns of the Tibetan struggle. When it goes up to the undersecretary's position, then there are many areas that that person will have to deal with China at many levels. So they just can't ignore. That is the reason why we appreciated the Biden administration for taking it back to the undersecretary's level. And the undersecretary Azra Zeya has been very, very proactive in her approach in the last few months since she took over as the special coordinator's position. When we were here in April, she met us very willingly. Just soon after she took over, her first engagement was to talk with our representative here in Washington, D.C. Then she also engaged with Tibet Fund. She answered to all the calls from the Tibetan media. And, after our visit here, she came to Dharamsala, met with His Holiness, and had a good understanding of the situation of the Central Tibetan administration, and to follow up on all the economic or programmatic engagements that we have with them already. And then she also undertook a visit to Nepal to address the challenges that our people face in Nepal in terms of registration of Nepalese, and hopefully things will turn for the better in the next few months to come. And now, lastly, I just want to say that in the last 60 years, it has been the effort of one and only His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now it's incumbent on the political leader and the leaders within the Tibetan community to carry this movement forward. And that makes it more challenging for us. And we are only about 130,000 Tibetans in exile. So we need your consistent support till the Sino-Tibet conflict is resolved in a peaceful, mutually beneficial, lasting solution. Therefore, your continued support is very important. I became emotional in the morning because I have studied Tibet support movement for many years, and people like the Speaker Nancy Pelosi has been there for the last 35 years, and Jim Magum also talked about Tibet not being treated as a flavor of the month kind of issue that is taken up only once in a while, and once that flavor is gone, then the issue is also forgotten. So I urge you to be consistent with your support, whether there are other pressing issues or not. Of course, we are very much shoulder to shoulder with our Uyghur friends, shoulder to shoulder with our Southern Mongolian friends. But unfortunately, in Southern Mongolia today, it's only about 15 to 16% Mongolians, and the rest are all Turks and Chinese. Now, in Manchuria, there are hardly any Manchurians who speak Manchukuo language today, even though there are a different nationality within China. So therefore, we don't want to see Tibet to be turned into another Manchuria, or Tibet to be turned into another Southern Mongolia. So your support is very, very essential, and all the more essential now that His Holiness is not able to travel. But I want to assure you, and His Holiness is also committed to live long. So that is why he keeps saying that now I will travel less, I will eat well, I'll sleep well in Dharamsala, and then I will live longer. And then I sometimes I sometimes challenge our Chinese friends, saying, let us see whether the Communist Party outlives the Dalai Lama or the Dalai Lama outlives the Communist Party. So I'm positive that His Holiness the Dalai Lama will outlive the Communist Party, and there will be freedom for the Tibetan people, for the Uyghur people, for the Mongolians and others. Thank you very much for all your support, and we really look forward to working with you. And we have a lot of plans to travel. Our parliamentarians will also travel to different countries. We will also, our Minister for the Department of Information and International Relations is also here. She will also travel. I will also travel, first mostly to those countries with whom we already have good relations, and then we want to extend beyond that. I'm very happy that there is a huge delegation from South America. There is already an invitation from Yanis to come to the Baltic states. We need to discuss more about this. We have a lot of plans to travel, and we really look forward for all of you also to come to Dharamsala. There is always an open invitation for you to come to Dharamsala and to witness our administration there. So thank you very much again for all your support. Thank you.